A cynical new low for the prince as he plots yet another fake royal trip overseas in a last shameless attempt to win over King Charles and make himself a frontline serving royal once again.
Well, it has to be stopped. They need to have lots of police and all sorts of people there to stop her doing that, to ruin that for the royal family, because she's not representing the United Kingdom one bit. She's representing herself, and I don't think she should be allowed to do that.
Harry sees this trip as a potential game changer in his relationship with the family, and our source goes on to say Harry wants to turn heads, wow everyone, and show the royals what they're missing.
The timing of this news is loud, almost too loud to ignore. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle just confirmed they're heading to Australia in mid-April, and on the surface it sounds clean and official.
Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are once again proving why they are such a danger to the British royal family as the couple announced a tour of the Commonwealth of Australia. And now, while they're saying this is a mix of private, philanthropic, and business related,
their spokesperson says the trip will include private business and philanthropic events, all very polished and put together, but look a little closer, and things start to feel off. This announcement didn't land during a win or a big success moment, not even close. It dropped right after a major shock hit the headlines. Netflix has officially cut ties with Meghan, and that changes everything. The same platform that was supposed to hold up their entire media empire has stepped back completely. No new shows, no extensions, nothing lined up. Just a sudden stop that caught a lot of people off guard. And then right on cue, the Australia trip gets announced. That timing has people talking. Many are already calling it exactly what it looks like, a strategic distraction.
Harry wants to be a frontline serving royal because he's bored in America and he's flat broke. Don't forget the deals are disappearing and Netflix have just pulled the plug.
In today's media world, one flashy international appearance can flip the narrative overnight. Eye-catching photos, public appearances, new outfits, and suddenly the conversation shifts fast. Instead of people focusing on a business setback, all eyes turn to travel plans and public moments. Now think back for a second. The last time Harry and Meghan were in Australia was 2018 during their royal tour, and the energy back then was completely different. Crowds showed up in huge numbers. The media couldn't get enough, and their image felt powerful and rising. Fast forward 7 years and the situation has clearly changed. They're no longer working royals, and the media empire they were building through streaming deals and big partnerships has taken a serious hit. Netflix was supposed to be a major piece of that plan, but now that deal is done and the future looks a lot less certain. Then, almost instantly, a brand new headline takes over.
She walked out of a market that had been done specially for her, that had taken days, if not weeks, to be ready.
Yeah, and asked to be paid.
And asked to be paid. But she didn't like that either. She felt uncomfortable. And she just hated it there, and she didn't want to go. Rather like she doesn't like the royal family. She hates it, but there's all sorts of rumours that she wants to go back. It's the same thing in Australia. She didn't like it. She hated it, but she wanted to, she wants...
Australia, Sydney, Melbourne, glamour, buzz, excitement everywhere, and just like that, the focus shifts fast. Now, the question isn't whether this is just a normal visit anymore, not at all. The real question is, why now, right after such a major setback? Because when a huge partnership falls apart like that, there's usually a move that follows. And it's not random. One strategy keeps showing up every time. Create noise, grab attention, and flip the whole story around. Suddenly, it's not about what went wrong, it's about what's happening next.
So the Sussexes have announced they're planning a major trip to Australia next month, April 2026. And the Mark Dolan show has been told by a very well-placed royal source that we trust implicitly that this trip is one that Harry hopes will put him and Meghan back on the royal map.
This trip starts to look less like a simple visit and more like a perfectly timed media move, designed to pull eyes away from financial pressure and push forward an image of power, relevance, and influence. And it's already working. Headlines are shifting the narrative at lightning speed, turning what looked like a serious collapse into something that feels like a high-profile return. So yes, they're heading to Australia, but don't misunderstand it. The spotlight isn't just for public appearances, it's also redirecting attention away from a much bigger situation behind the scenes. Netflix is out, things are shaking, And now everyone's focused on flights and events instead of tough questions. If this Australia trip happens the way it's being presented, it won't be low-key at all. It's shaping up to be a full-on spectacle. Early reports say Harry and Meghan are planning stops in Sydney and Melbourne, two of the biggest and most high-energy cities in Australia.
Red flag literally waving right in front of Charles's face. It's waving right in front of his face about Harry and Meghan, and he just seems unable to recognize how past actions, past dealings with Andrew have resulted in Harry and Meghan, and how that's just going to get worse.
Their spokesperson describes it as a mix of private business and philanthropic work, very polished, very controlled, very official sounding. But here's where things get interesting. There are no real specifics yet. No confirmed schedule, no named partners, no clear organizations attached. Just a promise that more details will come later, and that kind of vague rollout has people paying attention. Because in situations like this, the headline often matters more than the actual plan, and the headline has already done exactly what it needed to do. Within hours, media outlets across the world were pushing the story. Reports highlighted their return to Australia after more than 7 years. Old photos from the 2018 tour started popping up again, and conversations about their past popularity came rushing back. Some even started guessing how crowds might react this time. Just like that, the entire narrative flipped almost overnight. Instead of people focusing on Meghan's sudden fallout with Netflix, the whole conversation flipped into talk about an international comeback tour.
Yes, Harry and Meghan went to Nigeria back in 2024, but going to Australia, really making this seem like another attempt at a cosplay royal tour on such close, in a country so closely connected to the monarchy, should be very, very disturbing to those working in Buckingham Palace right now.
And that kind of shift doesn't just happen by accident. Not at all. One report even hinted that Meghan could show up on an Australian podcast called Her Best Life, hosted by media personality Jackie O. Henderson. On top of that, there are whispers she might step into a live event tied to that same brand. Maybe a celebrity Q&A, maybe something built to pull in attention and get people talking fast. Nothing is officially confirmed yet, but that's exactly the point. The rumors themselves are doing all the work. They build hype, spark curiosity, and most importantly, they create headlines that spread everywhere. And once the cameras start flashing, everything changes again. Picture this: glossy shots at Sydney Harbour, polished appearances, red carpet energy in Melbourne. Suddenly, the narrative shifts all over again. Now it's about outfits, appearances, and celebrity moments. Exactly the kind of attention that can push messy business headlines out of view. Because let's be real, that spotlight was starting to feel very intense. The collapse of the Netflix deal is raising serious questions about whether the Sussex business model can actually hold up long term. That partnership was meant to be the solid base for everything they were building after stepping away from royal duties. Instead, reports suggest it ended suddenly, leaving a major gap in what they were trying to grow. And that makes the timing of this Australia trip even more interesting. Big international visits aren't just about showing up somewhere. They reset how people see things. They rebuild an image of influence, remind the world of status, and most importantly, they create the feeling that everything is still moving forward smoothly, even when things behind the scenes might be saying something very different.
Now, our insider has said, and I quote, Harry believes that the optics of this Australia trip will be perfect. You heard me right. Harry believes the optics of this Australia trip will be perfect. Revisiting a country where the couple last visited as frontline members of the royal family in 2018. Our source goes on to say, Harry is hoping to tap into some of the magic of that last trip 7 years ago, where he believes that he and Meghan truly shone. He thinks that his father, the king, will be impressed with this Australian trip and will reach out.
If this really is a calculated media move, then these Australia headlines aren't just about sightseeing at all. They're about buying time. Time to reshape the narrative, time to redirect attention, and time to convince people that the Netflix fallout isn't something bigger waiting to unfold. And this is where things start to get even more complicated. The Netflix deal was supposed to be the crown jewel of the Sussex media empire, a massive partnership filled with shows, documentaries, and content meant to lock in their status as global media figures. But according to reports, it didn't just slow down. It completely fell apart. Netflix didn't quietly step back. They shut projects down, walked away from future plans, and ended the collaboration. That kind of shift hits hard. Suddenly, everything that brand was built around starts to shake. That strong entry into streaming? Gone. The momentum that once made everything feel unstoppable? It takes a serious hit. Meanwhile, the public is seeing bright headlines about Australia, with no clear view of what's happening behind the scenes, and that's where the picture starts to come together. This Australia trip doesn't just look like a series of public appearances anymore. It looks like a distraction timed to pull attention away from a struggling situation. Sydney, Melbourne, high-profile events, polished photos, social media buzz everywhere.
Thing they do, Angela, seems to be driven by a sense of revenge. And we've even
Yes.
seen that overnight with the news that it looks like their plan to go to Australia.
Every new headline pushes travel, fashion, and celebrity moments to the front, while the streaming deal quietly fades out of focus. Some reports even suggest their PR strategy shifted into high gear, working fast to turn the moment into something huge and eye-catching. Instead of letting the fallout take center stage, the approach seems clear. Create something so big, so attention-grabbing, that the earlier collapse becomes background noise. And right now, the media cycle is playing along, filled with glossy travel coverage and polished updates that keep the spotlight exactly where it's been redirected. Look at what's being pushed right now. The outfits, the tours, the lifestyle coverage, all front and center.
But what we see is them acting their fantasies out. They're acting as if they are what they always intended to be. And the Queen told them no. And if Charles does not address this, again, we have seen with Andrew how this leads to absolute.
Meanwhile, the real issue, the Netflix exit, is quietly fading into the background. And let's be honest, in entertainment, headlines aren't just information, they act like shields. They distract, they redirect, and sometimes they completely reshape how a story is seen. And right now, that distraction showed up at the perfect moment. Because this wasn't just about losing one deal, it hit the core of the entire brand. Without Netflix in the picture, every future move gets questioned. Streaming projects, lifestyle ventures, speaking appearances, all of it comes under a microscope. People start asking, how stable is this really? How strong is the foundation? And slowly, the cracks start to show. But here's where it flips again. The Australia trip instantly boosts their image. Suddenly, they're seen as entrepreneurs, philanthropists, global figures moving from one major city to the next. And while that image grows, the story that actually matters, the Netflix fallout, keeps slipping further out of sight. The strategy looks obvious: glamour over reality, distraction over difficulty, headlines over hard questions. The public sees excitement, travel, big moments, while the deeper issues quietly fade in the court of public opinion. All that glossy Australia coverage buys something valuable: time. Time to reshape the narrative, time to manage perception, and time to make sure the failure story doesn't take over completely. Because when a major deal collapses, sometimes the only way to control the narrative is to go bigger, louder, and more eye-catching than ever. A spectacle so polished that the cracks underneath don't get noticed. Now, looking closer at this Australia trip, it doesn't feel like a simple getaway at all. It's being framed like a carefully planned media rollout, something designed to grab attention at every step.
People will say wow, right? So he wants to turn heads and wow everyone. People will say wow when he goes to Australia. They'll say, wow, this couple are so embarrassing. Wow, this couple are deluded. Wow, this couple are living on another planet.
Reports say Harry and Meghan are expected to visit Sydney and Melbourne, two of the biggest cities in Australia. But here's the detail that stands out. Almost nothing has been fully confirmed. No exact venues, no named partners, no detailed schedule, just broad statements and promises that more information is coming later. And in situations like this, that kind of vagueness says a lot more than it seems at first glance. Just vague promises, that's all anyone is getting right now. Private business, philanthropic work, clean phrases that sound good but don't actually say much. That's controlled messaging, PR being shaped in real time right in front of everyone. And the rush behind these headlines makes it even more intense. Because behind all the polished language, things are messy. Netflix fully stepped away from Meghan, ending the deal that was supposed to elevate her into a global content figure.
And Harry and Meghan, of course, always wanted to conflate that. Meghan in particular wanted to be paid to do a walkabout. When they went to Australia and these huge crowds appeared, she was looking around going, why isn't anybody paying me for my appearance? I'm a stinking celebrity, gosh darn it. When I was an actress on Suits, I would get paid to shake hands with people. I would get paid to spend time with fans. Like, that's part of it. But that's not what royals do. Royals give of themselves a lot much more than celebrities do in many ways. And Meghan just couldn't understand that.
What once looked like a solid media empire suddenly feels unstable, like it's right on the edge. But the public isn't being hit with that full picture. Instead, they're seeing the Australia return story. Glamour, travel, events, outfits, social media buzz everywhere, an instant shift in focus. Some observers are even calling it a cover strategy because the timing lines up almost too perfectly. The announcement drops right after Netflix exits, and just like that, the conversation changes. Now it's about red carpet-style moments instead of a massive business setback. Fashion replaces tough questions, and glossy coverage takes over the narrative. The strategy feels clear. Move attention before the pressure builds. Announce a high-profile international trip, generate headlines fast, and fill social media with just enough excitement to keep people watching. And it's working. Instead of discussions about a reported multi-million-dollar streaming deal ending, people are talking about possible cocktail events, podcast appearances, and celebrity-style photo ops. Even the rumours are doing heavy lifting. There's talk Meghan might appear on Australia's Her Best Life podcast or show up at exclusive events tied to that circle. None of it confirmed, but it doesn't need to be. The speculation alone builds momentum and keeps the spotlight busy. This is distraction operating at full speed. A headline machine moving faster than any formal statement could. Every polished moment tied to Australia builds a layer that softens the harder reality underneath. Because behind all of it, the situation still raises big questions. The streaming deal ended, the broader media plans face pressure, and the foundation they were building is being tested. And that contrast makes everything stand out even more. Back in 2018, their Australia tour was celebrated, smooth, and widely seen as a major success.
How deluded these people are, that they think there's a chance that there's a way back when clearly there is not.
Now, 7 years later, the stakes feel completely different, and every move carries more weight. This isn't just travel, it looks like careful media positioning playing out in real time. This isn't being framed as a celebration, it's being shaped to control how everything looks. Every flight into Sydney or Melbourne, every staged photo, every public appearance feels carefully planned. The headlines will push one message: Harry and Meghan shine in Australia. But behind those cameras, there's a very different story building. Because beyond the polished images, there are real questions. Questions about financial pressure, deals that didn't continue, and that high-profile Netflix partnership coming to an end. So, the real issue isn't whether the trip looks glamorous, it obviously will.
And Meghan Markle walked into the royal family thinking, oh, her multi-millionaire dreams were finally coming true. And then she gets stuck in Nottingham Cottage and is like, oh my gosh, this sucks. I need to get out. I need to get out. How dare I? I'm a duchess now, and I'm living less well than I was when I was an actor.
The real question is whether it's doing what it seems designed to do. Keep attention away from bigger challenges happening out of sight. Now look at what's happening behind the headlines. First, the Netflix deal, the one that was meant to secure their place as major content creators on a global level. That partnership is no longer moving forward, with no new projects and no continuation announced. That alone shifts the entire picture. What was supposed to carry momentum into the future now feels uncertain, and that's exactly why this Australia trip is getting so much attention. The timing lines up in a way that's hard to ignore. But Netflix isn't the only pressure point being talked about. There are also reports questioning how other ventures are performing. Their lifestyle brand has faced scrutiny, with claims about unsold products and slow movement, raising concerns about demand and long-term sustainability. Then there's Archewell, the foundation that was meant to highlight their philanthropic work. Public discussions have pointed to lower donation levels and high operating costs, with some administrative issues being raised in reports. All of this builds a much more complicated picture than the headlines suggest, and that's why this Australia trip stands out so much right now. Because while the surface shows travel, events, and polished appearances, it also shifts attention away from these deeper conversations. The timing feels precise. Netflix steps back, questions start building, and right as attention grows stronger, the announcement drops. Suddenly, the focus changes. Travel plans, appearances, and social buzz take over, while the more complicated issues fade further into the background. Every headline starts to look the same. Fashion shots, red carpet-style moments, polished images, and full-on celebrity glamour everywhere. Meanwhile, the harder conversations fade out of view. The focus shifts to style, travel plans, and global influence instead of deals that didn't continue or business challenges building in the background. According to some reports, the PR strategy feels intense, almost like a race to replace negative coverage with something bigger and more eye-catching. A full push to turn attention towards spectacle instead of setbacks.
So it's quite extraordinary. It's going to have the opposite effect. If Harry thinks that this will be a game changer, the game will be changed and it will work against him, because Harry is going to once again infuriate not just his father, King Charles, but of course the real power behind the throne, William, who is the equivalent of the president-elect. He is the heir to the throne. He's the king in waiting, and he won't take any of this nonsense from Harry when he becomes the main man.
But here's the thing, that kind of shift doesn't erase the bigger picture forever, because underneath all the glossy coverage, questions are still there. And every bright headline coming out of Sydney or Melbourne can start to feel like a temporary layer over a much more complicated situation involving partnerships, long-term plans, and financial stability. That's the part not shown in the photos. Australia starts to look less like a simple visit and more like a moment designed to hold attention while everything else stays out of focus. People keep watching, clicking, sharing, all drawn into the visuals, while deeper issues don't get the same spotlight. The more excitement builds around the trip, the easier it is for those bigger questions to slip further into the background. Discussions about Netflix stepping away, challenges tied to other ventures, and ongoing scrutiny don't disappear, they just get quieter. And that contrast stands out, because while glamour can shift attention for a moment, it doesn't fully remove the underlying concerns. So the real question becomes, how long can that balance hold? How long can headlines carry the story before people start looking past the surface? How long can high-energy coverage keep focus away from the bigger picture behind the scenes? Every appearance, every event, every carefully captured moment adds to the image. But at the same time, the broader situation continues developing, whether it's in the spotlight or not.
And this is another clear sign and indicator of why Charles needs to take the ultimate step that he seems so reluctant to do, which is strip them of not only their titles, but places in the line of succession. Because Harry and Meghan are doing this not because they have anything to offer the people of Australia. No. They are doing this because the royal family has not held them to the Sandringham Accord. Harry and Meghan agreed that they could not be half in, half out working royal.
Now when you connect everything, the pattern becomes clearer. The Australia trip, the wave of headlines, the polished public appearances, it all lines up as a highly coordinated media moment. Because while attention is locked onto red carpet-style visuals, travel updates, and possible appearances, the deeper story involves major changes to partnerships, questions around business ventures, and a shift in direction that's still unfolding. That's the impact of spectacle. Every flight into Sydney or Melbourne, every staged photo, every rumour about podcasts or exclusive events, it all pulls focus in one direction. Meanwhile, the bigger picture continues to evolve in the background, with a media empire that once looked solid now facing a very different kind of reality.
So Harry wants to be right at the heart of the royal family again, because he wants the fame, he wants the status, he wants the privilege, and he wants the money.
Deals have fallen apart, the financial picture looks uncertain, and the headlines are doing a lot of heavy lifting to cover it all up. Some reports even suggest this push feels urgent, like a last move to regain control of the narrative before more questions start piling up. Because when a major partnership ends, when a lifestyle brand faces challenges, and when a foundation runs into public scrutiny, people start asking serious questions. Questions about sustainability, about credibility, and about whether the whole operation can really stand strong without something as big as Netflix in the mix. And that's exactly why this Australia trip matters so much right now. Not just for the glamour, not just for the photos, and not even just for the events themselves. It matters because it creates time, reshapes perception, and gives off the impression that everything is still moving forward without pause. But behind the scenes, the pressure doesn't just disappear. Across media, business, and philanthropy, the same pattern keeps showing up: setbacks, challenges, and reactions happening all at once. On the surface, the headlines are full of excitement. But underneath, the situation looks a lot more complicated. And this whole narrative only works if people stay focused on appearances instead of looking deeper.
To wheel and deal for themselves to enrich themselves financially.
Australia becomes the stage, the public becomes the audience, and the bigger story sits just out of frame, waiting for the spotlight to shift back. So while Harry and Meghan pose for photos on a Sydney pier, while coverage focuses on outfits, events, and polished moments, there's another side to the story that doesn't get the same attention. Because behind every headline, there are real questions about deals, business performance, and long-term direction that haven't gone away. The Australia trip starts to look like a powerful distraction, a bright, attention-grabbing moment that pulls focus away from more difficult conversations. Every flight, every photo, every appearance adds to that effect. And the longer the spotlight stays on the spectacle, the easier it is for everything else to stay in the background. As the travel coverage spreads, the images go viral, and the story keeps building momentum, one thing becomes clear. There's more happening beneath the surface than what's being shown. Now I want to hear what you think about all of this. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. If this breakdown gave you a different perspective, make sure you like the video, subscribe for more deep dives, and share this with someone who needs to see it.